Welcome to this Chemscape presentation on the hazards of liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG. This video will review the hazards of LPG and how we can keep ourselves safe when handling it. What is LPG? Liquefied petroleum gas is a colorless, odorless, and extremely flammable gas. To help detect leaks, suppliers often add an odorant called ethyl mercaptan, which gives LPG that familiar rotten egg smell. LPG is mainly made up of propane, butane, propylene, butylene, and isobutane, but most people simply know it as propane. It's considered a cleaner fuel because it produces far fewer greenhouse gases and particulates than gasoline, diesel, or heating oil. Propane is widely used as fuel for domestic and camping heating and cooking appliances. It also serves as a lighter fuel, refrigerant, aerosol propellant, gasoline substitute, and as a raw material in the production of various chemicals and plastics. Liquefaction reduces LPG's volume for easier transport and storage. Other petroleum products that are compressed for transport are natural gas liquids, NGL, which contain ethane, propane, butane, isobutane, and pentane, and liquefied natural gas, LNG, which primarily consists of methane. What are the physical hazards of LPG? LPG is highly flammable and can ignite easily. Because it is stored under pressure as a very cold liquid, it can also cause frostbite if it comes into contact with your skin. LPG vapors are heavier than air, so they sink and spread along the ground. This means LPG can build up in low-lying areas if there isn't good ventilation. In a confined space, leaked LPG can quickly reach dangerous levels, creating a serious risk of fire, explosion, or suffocation. What are the health hazards of LPG? LPG exposure can cause asphyxiation, skin and eye irritation, reproductive organ damage, and aspiration. At low concentrations, LPG usually isn't harmful. But at higher concentrations, it can displace oxygen, making it hard to breathe. That can lead to asphyxiation, seizures, heart problems, or even death. Even medium concentrations of LPG exposure can affect the central nervous system, causing drowsiness, nausea, or irritation of the airways. Always make sure you're working in a well-ventilated area and follow your site's safety procedures carefully. LPG is a moderate to severe irritant to the eyes and skin. Because LPG is stored as a very cold liquid, direct contact can cause frostbite. Mild frostbite might just feel like numbness or tingling. More serious cases can cause burning, stiffness, or waxy-looking skin, and severe exposure can lead to tissue damage or infection. If LPG contacts your eyes, it can freeze the tissue, possibly causing permanent damage or blindness. Where can LPG exposure happen? Most exposure happens through inhalation, especially if there is a leak, a fugitive emission, or a release during a connection break. This can occur in places like gas processing plants, refineries, aerosol manufacturing facilities, or transfer stations during loading and unloading. Let's review how to protect ourselves from LPG or propane exposure. When we look at the hierarchy of controls, we start by asking, can we eliminate or replace the hazard? But with LPG, since it's a manufactured product, there are often no practical substitutes or alternative technologies. That's why the focus shifts to engineering, administrative, and personal protective controls to manage the risks. Engineering controls and built-in safety measures help isolate LPG at the source or remove it from the air before it becomes dangerous. First, always use the right containers. Store and transport LPG only in approved pipelines, tanks, cylinders, or drums. Ensure all containers have proper valves, regulators, connectors, and manifold assemblies to prevent leaks. Make sure all valves, seals, and fittings are tight and in good condition to stop gas from escaping. When filling or transferring LPG, keep at least 50 feet, 15 meters, between portable containers or skid-mounted tanks and nearby buildings or ignition sources. Provide good airflow to disperse any LPG vapors. Use mechanical or general ventilation in indoor areas. Rely on natural ventilation for outdoor storage and handling. In addition to engineering controls, administrative controls can help reduce exposure to LPG through safe work practices. Some examples include restricting access to authorized personnel only, labeling LPG containers with appropriate warnings, using signage to warn against prohibited activities, following safe work practices and regulations on storage, handling, and transportation. Keep containers away from any sources of ignition, heat, sparks, and open flames. Never pressurize, cut, heat, or weld on LPG containers. Any electrical equipment used in these areas must be suitably approved for classified locations. Always ground containers and transfer vessels when handling LPG. Even empty containers may have residual vapors, so treat them with care. Storage conditions are important for LPG to ensure safety. Always store LPG in a well-ventilated area. Avoid storing in low, confined spaces. And keep tanks away from incompatible materials. Storing LPG inside buildings is strictly prohibited. Additionally, full propane cylinders should be stored separately from empty ones to reduce risk. Protect LPG from direct sunlight and maintain adequate temperature controls. In very cold conditions, such as during winter at around -40 degrees Celsius or -40 degrees Fahrenheit, LPG vapors can settle in low-lying areas, so extra caution is needed to prevent overexposure. Always secure LPG cylinders in an upright position in a well-ventilated area. Make sure they are stable and shielded from being struck. Remember, propane-powered vehicles are not permitted in underground parking garages due to the risk of gas accumulation. Always wear safety glasses with side shields, chemical goggles, or a full face shield to protect your eyes and face from frostbite or chemical burns when handling LPG. Wear fire-resistant clothing to protect against flash fires and insulated, chemical-resistant gloves to prevent frostbite or cryogenic burns when handling LPG. Use a NIOSH or MSHA-approved air purifying respirator or a self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, whenever engineering controls and ventilation are not sufficient. Respiratory protection is also required when oxygen levels are low or airborne LPG concentrations exceed the limits of standard air purifying respirators. For workplace hygiene, it's best to have separate areas for eating, drinking, changing clothes, and smoking. Always wash thoroughly before doing any of these activities and after handling LPG. Make sure there's an emergency eye wash station nearby in case a splash occurs. Launder contaminated clothing carefully, as LPG vapors can accumulate in fabric. Review emergency plans for your worksite and ensure staff and contractors are aware of the measures to take in the event of a release. That wraps up our overview of LPG hazards and safety practices. Remember, awareness and good habits are your best protection. Use what you've learned today to stay safe, both on the job and at home. For more information, or if you have any questions, reach out to your health and safety representative.